Welcome into a new BuffStampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com, joined by football analyst William Gardner to recap Colorado's 52-0 victory over Oklahoma State and look to the future, which includes recruiting, which we got some exciting news about here recently. William, how much did you enjoy that performance against the Cowboys?
Well, it was a lot of fun. It was, kind of the dominant performance that we've been looking for all year from this team. I guess, it wasn't start to finish great, except on defense. But even in that second quarter, when we had no offense at all, there was never. You're like, well, we got 21. We're going to win by 21 because these guys can't even get a first down. So there was never really any doubt. And I think that that leads me to I had a thought that clearly Robert Livingston and that defense had a chip on their shoulder and had something to prove after the week before. And man, did they come out and prove it. Now, granted that Okie State's lost a lot of people, and quite frankly, I think they had mailed it in to some extent, but still to dominate and shut out a Big 12 opponent is an impressive feat.
Yeah. I still don't know what happened in Kansas City. I said that with Brian in our post-game analysis video, but it's time to move on. It's college football, and to your point you made in our last show, I think, William, of just sometimes you just see a team like even Alabama is not immune to this type of stuff of where you just come out and you're not characteristically who you are. And we saw that bounce back pretty quickly. But yeah, maybe that was the one good thing about that Kansas loss is you knew that defense wasn't going to let that happen again.
Yeah, and I think, I've been watching this sport as far back as like 78, I guess. And if you watch this sport at this level at any given time, some teams are just going to have a bad day, and there's no explaining it sometimes. And the one thing I've learned over all these years is that you cannot take one individual score, and by that not a touchdown, but like the score of any individual game, and draw any larger conclusions from it. Is Kansas that much better than us? No, they were that on that day, but on any given day, probably we could I think we could easily beat them, but that was their day. They came out ready. We didn't come out ready, and it snowballed on us, and that's the way it goes. But that doesn't mean that's necessarily how much better than us they are. I think we're a good team who had a bad day.
Yeah.
I think it exposes a few things that we need to fix for next season, particularly the running game.
The running game for sure. Yeah, you know that if Julian Lewis is the guy there, you've got to support him. You can't put on his shoulders what Shedeur Sanders has been able to, walk around with on the field the last couple of years. But before we get into the Oklahoma State and kind of talk about a little bit more of our main takeaways, let's talk about what happened. I think it was 10 o'clock at night on Thanksgiving, where they got 4 commits. London Merritt, a former Ohio State commit, committed as an edge prospect, more like a defensive end probably. Carday Smith, a former USC commit from Mobile, Alabama, 6'5", 293-pound offensive tackle, committed to the Buffs. They also got Quentin Gibson, receiver out of North Crawley High School in Fort Worth, Texas. And last week, William, we were kind of debating whether we were going to talk about our most underrated guy in this class. And it was kind of hard to come up with an answer then because most of these guys are pretty highly rated.
Right.
But Quentin Gibson now to me is kind of my front runner for most underrated guy that they have in this class. And Alexander McPherson from IMG Academy, defensive and who led IMG in sacks this past year, also committed. Were there any of those 4 guys that made you do some Thanksgiving backflips in the living room there?
Well, you know who I'm going to go and have a good day about it is Carday Smith. One thing we saw this year, we walked a high wire act at tackle this year, man, because we had 2 of them, and Benson as a backup, but then Benson got hurt and Houston got hurt. And then we had to go with the walk-on, and I want to talk about him when we get to talk about the Okie State game. But we walked a high wire act at tackle this year, man. We got damn lucky that neither one of those 2 guys got hurt. With Seaton and Houston, I think we had a pretty solid pair by the end of the season. But Houston goes down, what do you got left? And so I think we really got to restock. I think I feel pretty good about the interior of the offensive line, but we got to get some tackles in here. And Cardi Smith certainly fits the bill because he's the real deal. He's well coached and he's polished and close to 300 at 6'5" or plus. And so I think he's a guy. Uh, before the season, I was reluctant to say Seaton is there, but he certainly proved that he was ready to go. But I think we're spoiled by that, so I wouldn't expect necessarily Cardi Smith to step in and be the starter all season the way Jordan Seaton was. But he certainly brings a level of talent to that right tackle position that we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah. And a reminder that the early signing day or signing period is what it's called, but most of the guys that are going to sign during that period will sign on the first day of that. And that's this coming Wednesday. So right now, Colorado's at 15 verbal commits. We've heard a lot about Alex Graham visiting other schools. It sounds like he could potentially flip to Michigan, but Colorado's also in the mix for a few 2025 guys still. We know they want to get a kickoff specialist, and Michael Carroll is somebody that was on campus recently. And I put some names up on the Buff Stampede message board, and I'll keep my ears to the ground as we get close. But with Coach Prime, you never know. There could be a surprise in there too.
Well, there's always going to be, and there's always going to be somebody that's a big time guy that switches from someplace else. Maybe that's London. I don't know, but Michael Carroll, I know people on the board say he wants to play guard, but he's certainly a guy with the kind of talent that could be a first game starter at that right tackle spot as well. Because you got to play a guy where you got to play him, and if we don't have that right tackle shored up, he's a guy that comes in and can have the same kind of impact that Seaton. But going back to your question, for most underrated, I'm going to go with the other guy, not because I don't like you, but Alexander McPherson to me, 6'6", 240, and the leading sacker at IMG Academy, where they're playing great schools all over the country. That's a real deal guy right there, and I can't believe you look at he's like 86 3-star. That's kind of ridiculous. That guy is a for sure early contributor to me with his size and athleticism. And so I'm pretty excited about him. But I think Gibson as well. I think if he was 2 inches taller, would be rated a lot higher. But what he brings to the game is like LeJohntay Wester.
Yeah.
So both of those guys are huge. It's everybody's going to be focused on the two big, the big names, London Merritt and Cardi Smith and Juju Lewis. But those two guys are legitimate additions to this roster for sure.
Yeah, Sean Niehoff made the point, and I thought it was a good one when I was chatting with him in the press box on Saturday. He said that McPherson and Gibson are probably going to be the most ready to make an immediate impact, right? And they're two are lower rated guys out of that foursome.
Right. And a couple of guys missed, losing some guys at that edge position anyway. And I think McPherson, I don't know which any of these guys are going to be early in the rollies or anything, but you get McPherson, he's gonna fill out that frame fast under Coach Mo and his team. And, 6'6", 240, he's easily going to be a 280-pound defensive end in a couple of years. So he can play that 5 technique and really be a wrecking ball out there.
Well, that is one of the goals they have at IMG Academy, is to get those guys prepared academically so they can be early enrollees. It is very much a professional mindset there of maximizing your time. So I'll double check on that, but I'd be surprised if Merritt and McPherson aren't on campus here for spring ball. I know Corbin Lazier is, Juju Lewis as well. I'll double check on that for the list of early enrollees, but there's going to be some guys. Even Coach Prime mentioned that he said they're going to get some of those guys for the bowl practices, which will be interesting.
Yeah, but I think, it's like to piggyback on your comment about IMG and the academics, they also prepare these guys for football. As you see Jordan Seaton and Cash Cleveland being ready to play this year. That's because they played at IMG and they're prepared. Not only do they get good coaching, but they play against top level competition, both in practice and on game day. So I think that not only would those guys be ready to come in early academically, but I think they'll be ready to contribute and play because they're going to be technically sound.
Before we get into the Oklahoma State game, let's remind everybody that we are brought to you by the Hungry Toad in Boulder. They've been bringing a taste of England to Boulder since 1991. We had a chance to go down there. We've talked about this in previous shows. William, I'm looking forward to the next excuse to get down to the Hungry Toad. They're located just, what is that? Just north of Pearl Street in Boulder. And it's a great spot. And I'm looking forward to getting back there with you.
Well, I'm thinking maybe with the bowl game being in the holiday season, I could take a day off. I'll come up there. We'll do our next show, maybe our pre-bowl game show or post-bowl game show. We could do from up there because I kind of enjoy having the pint. Well, the pint before the show and then the pint during the show. I think adds to the ambiance, shall we say, of the production.
Go to 2543 Broadway in Boulder and check out the Hungry Toad. Great beers, great English food. It's their menu is fantastic, so definitely recommend that. Today's episode is brought to us by Macaulay Capital Fractional CFO Services. Is your business looking for financial guidance and support, but not yet big enough to hire a full-time CFO? Well, we have a solution for you. Hiring a fractional CFO who can work with your business on a part-time basis. You get the benefit of having a seasoned financial expert on your team without the commitment or expense of a full-time hire. And here's the best part. It's likely that a partnership with Macaulay Capital will be a win-win situation, meaning that your business will make more money from the guidance of a fractional CFO than the total cost of partnering with us. For more information or to set up a meeting, please visit MacaulayCapital.com. That's MCCAULEY Capital.com. All right, William, Oklahoma State. Yeah, there are guys on that team that look like they were ready to hit a beach and not play any more football. But you can only play who lines up against you. In Colorado, played pretty fantastic outside of what you mentioned, the second quarter offensively. I wouldn't mind having that second quarter removed from my memory. That was pretty rough, but the rest of the game was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was kind of rough both directions, and among the guys that looked like they were checked out, to be honest to God, was Cale Gundy. I don't know what's going on there, but man, this is as bad a season as they've had. But that, you get up 21-0. I think we got a little complacent, and it was interesting to me. Matt Smith, I think said that he spoke with Shedeur after the game, and Shedeur said that Coach Prime got on him and said, "Calm yourself down and get your head back in the game," because a lot of what was going wrong out there was Shedeur waiting too long and whatever. There were clearly some problems up front, but I think they just needed to get it settled back down, and then they got back rolling again. So it was an ugly quarter of football, but we saw some defense out there. We saw some old 1990s Colorado defense out there on Saturday, just knocking people around, and really nothing ever got started until that final drive against the backups. So it was just a dominant defensive performance. I guess I'd say, it points out to me again, the overall final product, I guess it doesn't matter, but that second quarter points out again to me the need to be able to run the ball. And, in the garbage time, I guess I'll call it, we ran the ball effectively because I think because we emphasized it and we called those plays, right? And I put a play up on our board of a very beautifully run, inside zone where Michael Welch got I think 10 or 15 yards, but and that reminds me also, I think seeing Michael Welch makes it very clear to me that the two best running backs on this team are him and Augustov, and those two as one punch would have been a different thing all season.
Going back to Shedeur, I agree with you. But then you go back to that first touchdown that he threw to LeJohntay, where he had great pocket presence and he climbed back up in the pocket. And it's like, with Shedeur, I guess you got to just kind of accept that sometimes he's going to take a sack that he shouldn't. But maybe the best thing that happened in that game was that he took 3 in a row, and it was before halftime. And like you mentioned, Matt Smith said this, and this is something that Shedeur said, is that he had a sit down with Coach Prime at halftime, and it was Coach Prime's message is, "You're acting a fool out there." So, the The thing
I
is, they're going to have to coach that out of Shador at the next level. He can't do that in the NFL. That's not going to end well. So I think he will. He'll get to a level where he can trust an offensive line a little bit more. He has a little bit more this year at CU, but just not enough to where you can prevent some of those huge lost sack plays that they've had.
Yeah, and I think that it speaks to several things with Coach Prime. First of all, that all the jackwagons out there saying that there's nepotism and blah blah blah. He has no problem calling out Shador or Shiloh when they're messing up, and I think that that's another one of those things that doesn't get recognized on the larger sense. But he sat him down and he got him right, and that's what a good coach does. That's what halftime is for. In large part is calm everybody down, get you back on program, get you back where we're supposed to be, get your head right. Okay. And he did that. I think, and I don't want anybody to take it as criticism of Shador. I mean, my God, we got 9 wins because he's on that team. And if we don't have him on that team, we don't have 9 wins. So I'm just saying in that second quarter, he kind of got out of his game.
Yeah.
And, by the same token, however, you saw Shador at his best on that long throw to Isaiah Harge when they called a defense where they had one more guy than we could block. And Ben Resnick did a great job of taking the inside guy, which is his job, and that left the outside guy. And when you don't have a running back and you've got an extra guy, it's the quarterback's job to deal with that guy, okay, either by getting a hot route or getting the ball out of your hand. And Shador saw Harge making his break and got rid of the ball and took a hit. There's no way to avoid that because they got an extra guy. And, sometimes they make the right call and we still beat it. Sometimes they make the right call and we don't. But that play is entirely about, I think, first of all, Resnick does his job, trusts his teammate, and then Shador makes a great play and Harge makes a great play. So, that right there, that play alone just displays to me the next level abilities of Shador Sanders. And I think, he's really going to step up his game. He hasn't had any reason to trust his offensive line for the last 2 years, more so this year than last year. When he gets up there and he's got all professionals in front of him, that's gonna be a whole different thing. And I think they'll be able to coach that out of him. But at the end of the day, it was a hell of a fun game to watch, and offensively as well. And then I think the unspoken player of the game to me was LeJohntay Wester. I mean, the dude was everywhere. Catching that long run was beautiful.
He caught every ball he was targeted on. Targeted in that football game. Yeah,
it was nuts. He really put on a show. I think if Travis Hunter didn't win a Heisman with that performance, I don't know what to tell you, man. My God, that was just domination all the way around. And then I think there's some guys that, another guy that stood out without all the stats, Tajay McCoy, man. Holy cow! Ooh. I ain't running back no kickoffs against that kid.
A funny note there, William. There was a point. I don't think he finished this way, but there was a point in that game where he was the team leader in tackles, and it was all on special teams.
Yeah, he finished second.
Second, okay.
I got the stats. I always get the stats up, and I'm looking at he finished second with 5 total. He tied for first actually. Brendan Gann also had 5, so it was 2. You know why? Because all the kickoffs.
Well, yeah, Gann was in there on the final defensive series too, and he got some tackles there. But yeah, no, I actually tried to ask Coach Prime about the coverage team, but I maybe worded it wrong because I said, I know that you guys haven't gotten as many touchbacks as you wanted this year. And he just cut in and said, that's not happening next year. We're going to the portal. Like, he didn't want to hear anything. He does not want to have to worry about coverage teams. But, and Brian said this in our post-game analysis, if you do have to rely on coverage teams, this year's team had the right mentality. They gave up the 100-yard return in the Baylor game, but I have never seen a coverage team at Colorado put together that many hard hits. In one season. It was like you are not going to the bathroom when their coverage team's out there because they're so fun to watch.
Racking people. And I had this thought watching the game, kickoff after kickoff after kickoff after kickoff, that it never hurt us this year except that one play.
Yeah.
It really didn't hurt us at all. It had, for all and I guess I put that in the context of all the crying and the hoopla and the carrying on about we can't kick it in the end zone. It only hurt us one time the whole damn year, really. And we kicked off what, nine times, 10 times this time, and they got nothing. So I don't know, would it be nice? Is it make it a lot easier and less anxiety to kick it in the end zone every time? Yeah, but do we get to
Yeah.
see dudes run over by a Mack truck? No.
Yeah. Well, good on Cristiano Palazzo, who was recognized on Senior Day. He got one of those as a touchback in there in his final home game. So we know
Yeah,
that he's going off to be a firefighter. So that had to be a fun
yeah,
moment for him.
yeah.
But yeah,
He,
you talked about kind of patchwork at tackle. They kind of were doing that at kickoff specialists this year.
yeah.
But yeah, it was, the coverage units definitely made that not an issue for this team.
I'm gonna take a detour because you mentioned something that I don't want to forget. You mentioned Senior Day, and that uh, I get a little emotional because there was two very poignant moments to me. One was when Coach Prime was with his three sons out there. One of them was with the camera, and then when he walked out alone with Jimmy Horn Jr.
Yeah.
That shows me the relationship and the care and the love that he has for these guys. That guy chose him to be a stand-in for his father who couldn't be there. And I think that goes back to why people talk about, well, we're going to need a lot of NIL for this, that, and the other thing. I don't know about that, man, because I think people also want to go play for somebody who they know cares about them and doesn't just think they're a cog in a machine. And there is something very special about Coach Prime as a human being. He's clearly proven that he's pretty special as a coach too. But I think the fact that he's a very special human being is just as important in drawing people in here. But I just wanted to highlight because those were a couple very special moments to me that really kind of had nothing to do with the game um, and meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and it was just a great environment to see the student section fill up on Thanksgiving weekend. And just the weather too. It was pretty chilly. I got there at like 6:45. I get to the stadium really early and kind of walking in before people had gotten a lot of the tailgaters had gotten in campus. It was and then the sun came out and you get to see the sun rise up over Folsom Field. And then yeah, you've got the senior day activities and the lopsided win, 9 wins, which matched your preseason prediction there. And so it just all in general, it was just a great day. And uh,
Yeah, and
I was
that
walking
kind of
back to my car with the sun setting, and it was just, yeah, it was a great day at Folsom Field.
it's just a beautiful place. And I saw somebody that I don't know on posted on Twitter a picture from up high on the east side looking down, and their message was really can't overstate how amazing Boulder is for college football as a place
Yeah,
to come watch a game. It was, and just the way the game got played out and that getting out, jumping out to an early lead, and it was just, I don't know. I don't think I honest to God, I don't think I could have scripted a better ending game to wrap up this really very special season than what we saw on Friday. And then we waited and things didn't play out the way we wanted them to, but still, by the end of that game on Saturday, or by the end of that game on Friday, along with the commitments the night before, I don't know, man. If you couldn't feel like Jesus, we're on the cusp of something unprecedented and special, I feel for you, man, because if you can't see these signs and translate them into what's coming, I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, if I held up a picture, I couldn't make it any clearer about what's going to happen with this program, and I think the doors are just about to get blown off, But um, I think I think a couple things, Isaiah Harge had a big day. I think Michael Welch had a big day. And I'd like to talk about Ben Resnick, and I'd like to talk about Phil Lodeholt in that context because we played almost that entire game with two walk-ons on the offensive line and two true freshmen on the offensive line. And that's a hell of a job by the offensive line coach to have that productive of an offensive line with those kinds of guys being and load hold, as far as I know, never complained about it. He just kept going back to practice and finding the next guy and plugging them in, and to dominate a Big 12 team offensively the way we did again, with two walk-ons and two true freshmen out there, it's just really kind of crazy. So Ben Resnick, I don't think we don't want to start him in the bowl game unless there's nobody else. But you know what? The kid stepped in, got his opportunity, and he lived up to it, and he did what he was supposed to do. And he wasn't all American or anything else, but he got the job done. And I think he ought to be patted on the back. And that, everybody had a big, hey, Cash Cleveland. Well, maybe it's yay Ben Resnick for stepping in and doing his job. And that's what you need for really good teams is dudes got to know their role, and when it's time, step in and do it. So
Yeah.
I just want to say that kid, he's a junior. I think he's been there in his fourth year, and he's just plugging away and he's not getting a damn dime for it. And he's there for the love of the game and for the love of the team. And he stepped out and did a hell of a job. So congrats to him and congrats to Loadholt. I think Phil Loadholt did a fantastic job this year, kind of plugging in Lego pieces and putting it together, and his recruiting certainly is beyond question. So I just wanted to mention that and throw that out there.
Yeah. And Resnick is an original Buff. He's an OB. He was
Yeah.
on campus before Coach Prime got there. He doesn't get very low in his stance, does he?
No. Well, that's why he's a walk-on. He doesn't have that hip and knee flexibility, but
yeah.
and he's not athletic. And like I said somewhere on our board, he ain't pretty to watch, but he gets the damn job done. You want pretty to watch the other side, the left guy.
Yeah.
But he's a guy. You got to have guys on that team who play better than their talent when they get the opportunity. And got to have those guys on every team. And I think it's also a lesson to everybody on that team. We're going to play who will play, man. I don't give a damn if you're a walk-on. We'll play you if you're able to play. So I think it's a message also as well to guys outside the program saying, you want to play at Colorado, there's not going to be any favorites, man. We're going to play who's ready to play no matter what their title is.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad you brought up Isaiah Harge. I was thinking about his future, and it might be as a two-way guy because they've given him that designation in practice. Defensively, it seems like they like him a lot as a nickelback, and we've seen him be pretty physical on coverage units. Again, another guy that did well in that role. He's tougher than his weight would indicate. Like he's somebody that I think could play in the box, and maybe you put Colton Hood and DJ McKinney at corner. You have Isaiah Harge at nickel, and then maybe he's like a bit piece. They've gotten penalties on some of those plays where he's been in the Wildcat formation, but it looked like that's a recipe that could breed some success going forward because he's pretty good in that role.
What kind of penalty? Are you talking about? Like there was a holding penalty, I think.
He did it in the last game, and there was a full start, and then I think there was a holding penalty in this last game, right? When he was in twice, they've had a penalty when he's been in the Wildcat.
And just a segue, and then we'll come back to it. But Jordan Seaton, man, he does everything big time. Okay, when he holds, he don't mess around.
Yeah.
Because that holding, I was like, yeah, they got you on that one, son. But he wasn't going to let the dude make the tackle in the backfield, so he just took him down. If you're going to do it, do it.
Yeah. It was great to see Jordan really step up too when Shedeur got hit into those chairs on the sideline as well.
Well, and it was the whole team. I mean, Timmons was the first one there, and then if you watch it, I put the play up on the board, and if you make a big screen, slow it down, you see Jordan Seaton come in there, and he barrels in and he takes dude and Jackson back up against the wall, and then just right behind him is Cash Cleveland and Justin Mayers, and Justin Mayers and Cash Cleveland had the dude that did it pinned up against the wall, and he's all surrounded by buffs, and I'm like, oh my god, we might witness a beatdown and a killing here, and the refs in the middle trying to push people away, and I was just really impressed to see his teammates come to Shedeur's aid like that. And I think that means a lot to a quarterback to know that his guys are going to be there and have his back. And I think that's what offensive linemen need to do. I mean, I've said over the last 10 years at various times, like, when Sefo Lufa was getting the crap knocked at him by that UCLA team, it just incensed me that our guys didn't do anything about it. Made me so freaking mad. And then when Shedeur got that cheap shot, well, when Travis and Shedeur both got cheap shotted by CSU and our offensive line didn't do anything about it. Well, with Jordan Seaton and Khalil Benson and Justin Mayers on your team, that ain't happening no more.
Yeah. I love everything about Folsom Field, and including the fact that the crowd is so close to the action, but it's really not safe on those sidelines. at
No,
Folsom. There's just no room. Like I don't know. There's really not much you can do unless you're gonna
no,
have a
rebuild the whole
huge,
stadium.
yeah. But
I mean, I
it
guess you
is
could dump
scary
all.
at times. You remember Aaron Maddox had a pretty bad leg laceration when he ran into some equipment just
Yeah, and
off the sideline, and Steven Montez took a
yeah,
couple bad spills over there. So
there's a
um,
little bit of room on the walkway in the front of the visitor side, but there really ain't much on the home side.
yeah, yeah. So
If you, in terms of if you wanted to do construction and open it up a few inches on either side, but it wouldn't be enough to really make a difference. It's just built
yeah,
that way.
Carter Stoutmeyer had a good game as
Yeah,
well. Had a nice pass breakup, a forced fumble, graded out really high on PFF. I know he's a guy that can play anywhere in the secondary. I think he's best suited for safety next year. What do you
yeah.
think?
I think we need to upgrade the safeties a little bit from this year. We were so strong at the cornerbacks and the nickelback. We need to have that same kind of play from the safeties. But yeah, I think he's a guy that could play really, really kind of anywhere across those 5 spots, 6 spots if you go dime. But there was a lot of guys. He looked. I mean, you know, McKinney was fantastic in that game. I mean, he was just really shutting down their key guys I think DJ McKinney gets lost a little bit behind Preston Hodge and Travis Hunter, but he's as good as they are.
He would have been able to pick off that first pass that Travis Hunter intercepted
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it wasn't intercepted. And it was actually really good of DJ McKinney to kind of get out of the way. You see a lot of times where defenders they're locked in on the ball and then they collide and then they cause both
Right.
of them either of them
Right.
from being able to intercept it.
And was
McKinney had a couple gaps early in the game, but Smith missed through on that. But he really settled in nicely, so it could have been a 2 interception day easily for McKinney.
was it Stoutmeyer that tipped it and then almost caught the tip? Remember that play? One of
Yeah,
our
yeah,
backs tipped it, then almost caught it, and then Travis almost had 2 more interceptions. I mean,
yeah.
that one came over the top of that guy. That would have been one of the most impressive interceptions I'd ever seen. And then that one as a wide receiver where he went up backwards behind himself like this and then flipped over and still almost caught the damn thing. It's like the TV announcers when I watched the game again, they said a mere human doesn't even get close to that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, even Travis's last touchdown, it's like ho hum. We're used to that, but that would have
Right.
been let off the
Highlight.
show probably, many years covering this program.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I think if he didn't win, if he hasn't won the Heisman now, man, then
Oh, he
it's
has. He's won the
it's
Heisman.
bias
He
against
has
Trump.
not won the Heisman, but he's won the Heisman.
Yeah. I mean, the guys on the TV team said, look, I came in with him as my pick to begin with, and after this game, like, there's not. I don't. The one guy said, I'm not even entertaining conversations anymore.
Yeah.
It's over.
And Genty had a nice game, but he fumbled, and he carries the rock a lot. And
Right
it's
against
against group of five competition. And yeah,
right.
I said this like maybe 4 weeks ago to Brian because we were having a discussion about it. And I said, just knowing Heisman voters, I think I know maybe a half dozen. They're not going to vote for a Boise State running back unless there just aren't other great options. And Travis Hunter is one of the best options that voters have had for the Heisman in a very long time.
Right.
By the way, William, I had a dream the other day. So I'm going to New York. My wife will be doing photography out there. I'm very excited for that. The media rate is good enough that we can actually stay like right on Times Square. So it should just be a memorable trip. But I had a dream the other day, and I was in the elevator, and Dylan Gabriel was at the Heisman because Oregon, their quarterback, he's doing well this year, and Dan Lanning backed me into the corner in the elevator and said, "What's the deal with your William Gardner friend?"
Well,
So I'm actually dreaming about Dan Lanning now and his and your feud with him.
and I hope, and I want you to do this right now. Take a piece of paper, write my phone number and my address on it, and have it in your pocket so that in
Okay.
case you go, hey, don't
Okay.
talk to me, Chief. Here he is.
Okay.
And I want you to say it this way: he ain't hard to find.
I love it. Okay. We need to make that happen if Dylan Gabriel. I don't know because Cam Ward they lost yesterday, right? Miami. So I don't know if he's
Yeah.
going to get I don't know who else is going to get there. I think Genty will get the invite to New York and obviously Travis. So we'll see. But if that happens, I will do that because I can't. As much as I want to punch him, William, I can't lose my job. So I will just hand the number over.
Well, and you, yeah, and I'm 60, man. So I'm close enough that I can walk away and take my retirement now. And I know, believe me, after my 17 and a half years, I know the best defense lawyers. I
So
I know.
yeah, you're going to punch him, and then you're going to say worth it
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
whatever consequences come down the road.
Well, we'll see if I can bait him into punching me first, then it'd be self-defense. So
Okay, okay. All right. What else from this game? Alejandro Mata.
we better
Alejandro
stop talking.
Mata.
We better stop talking about it because now I'm killing my own alibi by
That's true. That's true. Yeah, if you need me to edit this out, if you really want to do that later in life and we need to keep that secret, we can do that. Alejandro Mata tied Mason Crosby and I think James Stefano as well with his 10th field goal make in a row. Kind of quiet from him because he has not, had a lot of
yeah.
opportunities, which he says he loves because he prefers kicking extra points because he's bought into the whole culture and he's such a great kid. We had a chance to talk to Alejandro Mata the day before Thanksgiving, and he's talking about his pre-game day tradition of eating this public sandwich, which does not seem healthy. God bless him and his 21-year-old metabolism.
Wait a minute.
But
When are we going? Speaking of which, when are we going to go back and get another Juju burger? Speaking of healthy meals. Sorry, go
oh
back.
man, well they changed it now. It's forget the name of it. There's a different burger on the
Special.
menu.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
All right,
maybe we'll
back
do that.
to Mata.
But
And
no, his personality is so fun.
I know some people have expressed, gosh, he's, Crosby was better, blah blah blah, whatever. Bottom line was he goes out and does his job, and he fits
Don't
into where all.
besmirch Mason Crosby. Come on
I'm not
now.
I'm not besmirching him at all. I'm just saying that,
Okay, okay.
I'm just saying that people that are saying that are off base. Let's celebrate the guy. Let's celebrate CU players, man. We ain't got to tear them down by comparing them to
Yeah.
other guys. It's like, um,
Well, if he makes his
my,
next one, then he will have
yeah,
broken Mason's record,
yeah,
which would be a cool moment. And
yeah,
I forget when this happened. It was maybe 15 years ago where they started including bowl stats in terms of career stats. For a
right,
very long time, they didn't do that. Now they do. So if Mata does make a field goal we'll get into where they're most likely going in the
yeah.
bowl game, then he would have that record. So that would be a
Yeah.
cool moment. And he's got another year, William. He's going to be back next year.
And for the grief he gets. I mean, I got to tell you, for a 9-3 team, the amount of angst expended on kickers on this team kind of amazes me. My position on kickers, so I don't have much to say about it either way. But still, the guy comes out and does his job. Maybe he can't kick it from 50 yards. So what? He doesn't miss from the area that we do ask him to do it. And it again, it's another thing hasn't hurt us in a game yet. So why are we so worked up about it? I guess I don't know, but I love the kid, and I don't think he has played such an important role in the last two seasons that he's a buff to me, man. And he's done his job and showed up, and he doesn't get in trouble and doesn't talk trash, and so I just excited for him to get that, and he's a kid that comes out and has fun playing the game, and I don't have any beef with that.
Yeah, so many great personalities on this team. Travis Hunter won the Buffalo Heart Award. We talked about our vote would probably go to Cam Silman Craig. I mentioned Vonta Bentley, as a guy. But and honestly, more of that thinking, I don't know about you, William. For me, it was Travis is gonna get a lot of awards, and this would
Yeah,
be kind of a way to honor one other guy. But like
if you're
to
talking
to
toughness, if you're
yeah,
talking toughness and grit, and he plays every play of the game, that's where you get the toughness and grit, right?
yeah, yep. And it's a great selection. And Shador won it last year. Travis getting it this year. To have both those guys
Right.
on, the list of names that have won that trophy. That's probably the right way to go. Um,
And that the thing is that I don't know, this just popped into my head as you're talking about that. You mentioned so many good personalities on this team. There's a lot of great guys on this team. There really isn't anybody I can think of who's a jackass or a troublemaker. There just really isn't anybody that I can bring to mind that gives me a negative feeling in my heart. Like last week when we were talking about who you're going to miss. I'm going to miss them all, man. You know, and all the way down, through the newcomers and everything else. There's just been no, at least that I'm aware of, no negativity on this team, no backstabbing, finger pointing, any of that kind of drama queen crap, and I think that's a testament to Coach Prime and his coaches for the guys they brought in and the quality of the people they got here. And that's another thing that the stupid national media misses, is the quality of the people on this team. So that's just fun to me.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this 9-win season at least like mutes some of that crap that we had to deal with all last offseason. It was so tiring. I don't want to go through another offseason like that again. It's like
Right,
the
right.
Steven Quarter stuff, the Sean Keeler stuff, like, and even the Keeler stuff kind of came back up because Coach Prime gave him an opportunity to ask a question. He declined. And it's just like, it's so fun to talk of football with this team. And I
Right.
don't want to talk about those stupid stories again.
Right, right, and I think we're going to get past that. I also think that Coach Prime's answered those questions. Man, he's shown he can coach and win. He's shown that he learns. He's shown that he gets better week to week, year to year. And I think that by answering a lot of those questions, the fact that he's still going to be here in the portal, the I think a lot of the big dogs last year didn't want to get on board because they're like, I don't know, we don't know if this guy can coach or not. We don't know if he's going to stay there or not. Well, both of those questions are going to be answered this time around. And I think we're going to see the floodgates open on guys that want to come here in the transfer portal because they want to be part of something, and they're going to talk to the guys that are part of it. They're going to say this was amazing, and really super fantastic players are going to want to come here, and we're going to have to turn some of them away. I mean, I don't think we've seen anything yet like what we're about to see starting here in a few weeks. But
Yeah.
including starting Wednesday. I would be shocked, to be honest with you, if there's not a big surprise on Wednesday at some point, and a name that we didn't really expect to be on the list or something of that nature. But I think I was going to ask you, if we're ready to move on from the Okie State game, I was going to ask you what have we learned this year? I'd like to know what you think. What have we learned about this coach, this team, this program that we didn't know, 12, 14 weeks ago.
What have we learned? We've learned that Coach Prime has a pretty good eye for guys that he's going to hire. And there's a mesh point that needs to take place with him in certain guys, and some familiarity that he's comfortable with. And he's got a pretty good gauge on that. And, there are some things you can nitpick with his coaching this year, but I would say generally over 12 regular season games versus 12 regular season games last year, his game day coaching and his staff's game day coaching improved.
Yes.
Again, there are a few things you can kind of like, why did you not take that penalty when you were at Kansas? Like in small things like that. But um, I felt pretty good about the improvement that they showed in that sense. In terms of the portal, there were guys borderline knocking down the doors last year off a 4-8 season. I think what we've now learned is you've got this proof of concept that can be used with recruiting now that, like you said, it's like feels like it's just the door is going to be blown off the hinges because of all the talent that's going to want to come in, and I think that's going to be the case. I think we learned that Coach Prime knows how to cultivate and value depth, which was maybe the single most issue with this program the prior 20 years before he got to Boulder. Is yeah, you'd have pretty nice guys here and there in the starting lineup, and then one of them goes down, and there's this huge drop off.
Right.
We don't get to the Espinoza Island or D.D. Goodson playing nickelback after never having played defensive back before in his life.
Yeah.
There is a next man up mentality that they've created. Getting guys to buy in on special teams has been really fun to watch because that's when I feel like you've got a locker room that's really healthy. Is you got guys that maybe their only snaps are going to come on punt coverage, but they are going to go 100% on those plays and try to make a name for themselves in those situations. He's got a pretty good eye for talent. I think that first off season, there was just a weeding out process that wasn't going to be perfect. It didn't matter who you had at the head coaching job or.
They kind of had to take whoever they could get. Let's be honest. They had to
Yeah.
replace the whole roster, and Coach Prime wasn't a proven thing, and so they kind of had to take to some extent what they could get.
Yeah. And we've also learned, I think, and uh, I don't think that I'm going to regret saying this, but like that he is committed to Colorado.
Oh yeah,
And it's been this narrative that once his sons leave, that he won't be in Boulder. And that just does not appear to be anywhere
yeah.
close to his mentality. Um,
I I,
if I had to
I think
guess, he's going to be in Boulder for at least 5 years, but we'll see how it plays out.
yeah, and I think that he clearly loves it here. He loves the atmosphere here. He loves the difference he's making in this city. I think he loves the total like the Peggy Copham story and all those other kinds of things that you look at and go, this guy loves it here. But I also think that Coach Prime has a lot of pride. And I think it eats at him a little bit that there are people out there that say, well, he's only been able to do this to CU because of his sons and Travis, which I include as one of his sons anymore. But I think he wants to show them, up yours, I'm going to show you when those guys are gone, I can still rebuild this thing and make it even better than it was before. I think another thing we've learned very clearly beyond any question is that Coach Prime learns from his mistakes and he learns fast and he doesn't make them again. And I keep going back to that statement after that game with the clicks jackass. Get me now, get me now, and he's proven it already that they you had your chance at him. Now he's going to load up with talent, and you're not going to have a chance because I think I agree with you that he really has an eye for coaching talent, and the replacements he made on his coaching staff this year, had some question marks, but uh, Robert Livingston's a Grand Slam home run, and Phil
Yeah.
Lodehold ain't far behind,
And I'll be honest with you, like I think Pat Shermer should be their offensive coordinator next year. I know that there's been some issues. I want to see what he looks like when you're not trying to tailor an offense around this 10 personnel all the time. That
right,
I don't know. I it's just the OC is such an easy position to just hammer.
right, right.
And
To what
I'm not saying he's like the best offense coordinator in college football, but I like a lot of what he does.
Yeah. To what extent, and you're closer than I am, to what extent do you think that the offense and play calling is dictated by Shador or around Shador, versus what
Well,
Shermer would like to do? Or
I,
am I just
I
wrong?
I would just be guessing. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. That might be a good spring ball question, but on the record, I don't know if Pat Shermer can really honestly answer that. But yeah, like there is a reason that you want to be tailored to Shador Sanders because I mean we've just in the last couple of years taken for granted just how accurate he is. Like it when he's given time, it's unbelievable how accurate he is.
There was one pass where he hit LeJohntay Wester, and there was only like, the defensive back's hands were right here, and LeJohntay's were right there, and it was like just a quick slant, and it was such a precision throw. It was unbelievable
Yeah.
to watch, and so
Yeah.
I
Gonna
think,
miss that for sure.
yeah, and I think maybe next year, we got a different quarterback, whether it's Juju or somebody through the portal, or whether it's Staub or whatever. I think we build up this offensive line and we get a running game. I think we got the two workhorse running backs that we need. If we
I'd
can
like
get
to
one,
see them try to get a headliner through the portal just to
you
add
don't
competition to that
think,
room.
either one of those guys.
I think Isaiah Augusta could be a feature back. I wish we could have gotten more out of him this
Yeah,
year. It seemed like he was kind of hitting his stride when he got hurt.
yeah,
I love Micah Welch, but even this year, you kind of saw they had to utilize all that depth.
right,
So
right.
um,
Yeah.
and
So like,
if it scares off Dallin Hayden or somebody, I'm fine with that. But I
yeah,
want to see them go after a top level running back to really complement Juju in the offense. If again, to your point, if that's the starting quarterback next year.
and I think to do that, they're going to have to promise the guy some carries. I mean, you can't bring in a top running back like that and have the same offense where they only hand off 15 times a game. You know,
Yeah,
so
they'll
I
be
think,
more balanced next year. And
yeah,
I you mentioned kind of what Loadhold did with the offensive line. They did a much better job recruiting guys in there, but we did see kind of the depth kind of dwindle
right,
at times. Um, that's another area, defensive line. Like there are a lot of needs through the portal, but they got as I posted on our message board, they got the head coach that's going to make that happen. So
Right. And I, I was thinking about your comment about the depth, and it occurred to me, it's like, when in the last 15 years could we have lost our number one right tackle, his backup right tackle, who's also potentially a starting guard, um, and still fielding an offense? I mean, you know, to be able to put in like the third string guy, Ben Resnick, and have him be functional and do pretty well says a lot about this coaching staff, both play calling and Phil Loadholt and teaching. There was concern before the season, can Phil Loadholt teach the technique? Well, by God, he certainly can, because what I was seeing out there, that one inside zone play that I posted on our board was the most beautiful zone blocking I've seen since the 1990s Denver Broncos, man. I mean, it was gorgeous. It was every single guy. And when you watch really good zone blocking, every single guy looks like a clone of the other guy. And that's exactly what that play showed me. And I watched that play. I'm like, I watched it over and over because it's beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful
yeah.
to me. Some people may want to watch passes downfield, but I will watch that kind of zone blocking over and over again. And that tells me what kind of coach Loadholt is. So, where do you think we go from here,
Real,
man?
real quick there. Have you noticed that Oklahoma State starting quarterback's been sacked 34 times this year? We have come to find out that Phil Loadholt had a bigger role in that offensive line development at Oklahoma than the title would have suggested.
You
Yeah,
said Oklahoma State. You meant Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I did not see that, but yeah, it does tell you something. And Gunnar White is his assistant, and I suspect that Loadholt focuses on the tackles, and White focuses on the interior guys, but I don't know that for a fact. I'm just based on what they
yeah.
both played in college, but they've done a masterful job, and the defensive line trio of coaches gets a lot of notoriety because their guys get sacks and all that kind of stuff. But these two guys have done a hell of a job with the guys they got too, and it'd be interesting to see going into the spring who steps up into those positions and starts to, and maybe even for the bowl game. I mean, I think, with a full season behind their back, some of those young offensive linemen probably ready to go now. With a few weeks to do some experimentation, we might see some different bodies up in front for the bowl game.
Yeah. What's next, William? Signing day this Wednesday. The following week, off to New York to cover the Heisman Trophy ceremony, bowl prep. So they'll be practicing. They're allowed to have 15 bowl practices, which is you spend a lot of time developing younger players if you're doing it right. And Coach Prime will be doing that. Obviously, portal madness. The bowl game, maybe not what most CU fans wanted. But if I told you back in August that Colorado's going to win 9 games, go to the Alamo Bowl, play BYU, you would have taken it.
Yeah, I think anybody would have taken it. And I think it wasn't until October that we started really thinking about more than that. So
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I said 9 wins before the season. You said 8, and some people were like that, kind of scoffed at that. So
Yeah.
and I think that going to this bowl game now is like a reward and fun and a lot less pressure, I guess, than we all want to be in the championship game and go to the playoffs and what have you, but it didn't work out. And I think realistically, we're not there yet. And I think our record shows that we're a couple of guys. I think we're a couple of defensive tackles still, maybe, a couple of offensive linemen still, that big time running back. Which leads me, I was going to ask you, what do we need? Where do we need to get better, and what do we need to do that, in your view?
We'll get better, obviously, the running game. In terms of replacing personnel, you got to look to the defensive line first because of what
Yeah.
you lose there. In linebacker as well. Obviously, they're losing a couple really, really good linebackers. I think secondary wise, it's just kind of, you want a top level safety to throw in there to compete with Savion Riley and Carter
Yeah.
Stoutmeyer. I feel like back there, cornerback, you just want to keep cultivating this depth. But it's a lot better to be cultivating depth than having to
Yeah.
completely revamp an entire roster.
And what I guess, in terms of the defensive line, in terms of comparing it to this year, I love what Chidozie Nwankwo did this year in terms of eating up two linemen and causing offenses to have to change their blocking schemes and making those linebackers run free. But to move up to the next level, I think we need to have two guys like Amari McNeil at the end of the year who are making plays in the backfield, who are blowing up offensive lines and making plays in the backfield. We need more of that. Frankly, it's great to tie up
Yeah.
blockers. Now we need guys that can get free and make those havoc plays. I mean, the way Amari McNeil was playing those last few games was really, first team all conference, maybe, borderline all America level. He was unblockable. And we need a couple of guys, maybe three guys even, to get to that level. That's what we would need it against Kansas, is some guys to wreak some havoc interior defensive line. So I want to see that more depth at linebacker, because we again walked the tightrope there with those two guys. Not getting.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with Jeremiah Brown and Trevor Woods, because they've stayed around the program.
Yeah, and a lot of those edge guys, Keaton Wade, well, and okay. That reminds me, another guy who was massive in the Okie State game, didn't get his name called a lot, was Arden Walker. There's a guy who was developed into a wrecking ball, man, in the run game and the pass rush game. Arden Walker is a bona fide superstar in the budding. He's that close to really busting out, and I think next year could be the year when he's one of the top guys in the entire conference on the defensive line. So that's another guy that I'm looking forward to.
Do we need to start a GoFundMe to get you down to San Antonio for the Alamo Bowl?
Yeah, I wouldn't complain about it.
Yeah, I've said that CU fans are disappointed in that. It's not because the Alamo Bowl is not a prestigious event, and it's really well run. I love how everything is pretty walkable along the Riverwalk. Yeah. The Alamo Bowl is right kind of close by, and so you don't even have to rent a car. As long as you stay down on the Riverwalk, you can kind of walk to all the events and Uber it if you want to go get some barbecue. But it's a really cool event. I like it, but it's provided a couple bad memories. Colorado got blown out in their previous two trips out there. I do not, after watching Houston BYU last night, think for a second that Colorado's getting blown out again in the Alamo Bowl. BYU is a good program. Colorado's playing much better football at this point.
Yeah, and we're a butter. The two times we got to the Alamo Bowl before, the first time, that team was spent. I mean, it was clear.
Well, they were also enjoying it. William, I spent 5 days down there, and every time I'd be on the Riverwalk, and a Colorado players would walk by. They were having the time of their lives, and I loved it because that was a group that had been through so much. You run into Oklahoma State players on the Riverwalk for that 2016 Alamo Bowl, and it was like a business trip for them. And so, yeah, that was part of it. But yeah, when they won the Pac-12 South, it was like they had reached their goal, and it was just hard to muster up that same enthusiasm. And they also didn't have Ahkello Witherspoon or Chidobe Awuzie available in that game.
No, and that team was physically limited and had no depth, and they got lucky not to have people injured, and they just kind of got beat up against Washington, and Oklahoma State beat them up as well. So they didn't have the talent around that team that this team has, and that okay. I just thought of another thing that I was going to say about what do we learn about Coach Prime. The Coach Prime team is going to play hard ball, man. They're going to be tough and physical, and they're going to hit you. Okay, that's one thing we learned this year is he doesn't mess around, and he wants that defense to play tough and physical. I think he wants his offensive line to play tough and physical, and so that's going to be an entirely different thing in the Alamo Bowl than the last two times we went down there, because this team is going to hit you in the mouth. And those last two, the 2020 team was sort of
that almost doesn't even count. They were 4-2, or they were 4-1. COVID issues. Neither team really had much of a roster to deal with, and that was just a time that I would like to forget. I think most of us would,
and I think we're all going to forget it a lot moving forward here. So I think that'll be a fun game. And I don't know who, I think that this 15 practices of bowl prep will help. This is one of the things that also like the rich get richer, right? You go to a bowl game, you get 15 extra practices, which people don't understand how important those are for your younger guys. As you said, that's program development time, right? You
Mhm.
really only get a week to get ready for the game itself. But aside from that, you're getting practice reps for younger guys, and you're doing some fun things to let those guys have scrimmage games or whatever. So those extra 15 practices are amazingly important. And even if some of these young guys get in there, like some of the guys that might be able to show up for the bowl practices, more important than actually getting on the field with pads is to get into the meeting rooms and understand how Power Four practice is run and done, so that when they come in spring, it's not, oh my God, this is so intense and serious. They've seen it a little
Mhm.
bit. So
Yeah.
break that ice a little bit and get them around the big grown-up players, and they start to see what it takes to play at this level and in this sort of a game. So there's so much benefit to going to this bowl game, even if it's not where we actually want to be, that you just can't oversell it. And so I'm very excited about it.
I think the excitement will ramp up a great deal. It's just kind of that we're recording this on Sunday, kind of the hangover after
Yeah,
the Big 12 championship. Hopes got dashed, and so I think that's part of it. But it really is a cool event, and I hope anybody that can get down to San Antonio can. If you can get down there, William, we got to do a selfie by the Alamo,
yeah, we'll go out.
which is very small in person, by the way. It's not
Yeah,
a big deal. It's not as big as you would think it is.
yeah,
Hearing about the
yeah,
history of the Alamo.
right. Which I guess is why you could defend it with a few guys. But I think that I was down there. I was down there, and I worked at that uh, the All-Star game, the high school All-Star game.
Yes, I've covered that many times. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a great event. San
right.
Antonio's a fun town, isn't it? I
Yeah,
mean,
and I was one of the coaches, so whoever rivals, I guess, pays for that whole thing. They paid for my trip and my hotel room and whatever, and it was, and like you said, that hotel where the team was, where the high school kids were staying, and then there's on the
at the
across
Hyatt
the street,
off the
yeah,
Riverwalk.
across the street is another hotel. And what I recall vividly from that game was after the game, you went back to that lobby. Every college coach in America was in that lobby
Yeah,
talking to those kids after
yeah.
that game.
Because they were in town for the coaches convention, which
Right,
was basically inviting these coaches to illegal recruit. And it's funny
right.
because I would sometimes get out of the Hyatt, the team hotel, when I was covering those games because I got to actually get work done. And sometimes when you're just around people, you end up talking and not getting your
Right.
stuff done. So I would go to that other hotel, or I went to that other hotel once thinking that was like a safe place. And you had
Right.
all these coaches doing these under the table deals, and it was eye opening. This is pre NIL when this stuff was
Yeah, this
still
is 2012.
quiet.
Yeah, 2012 when I was there. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of fun stuff. And to your point, though, I mean, it was just like a 5-minute walk to the stadium from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Along
So
that whole.
yeah, I'm gonna gear up excitement for it. It just yeah, I had a flight out to Dallas, and so canceling that today was kind of a bummer. But you
Well, if I
know,
make it down there, we need to get some people together. We'll get together and have some beers and shots or something, and see if we can't make a name for the Buff Stampede board.
just don't fall in the Riverwalk. If you do, it's a $500 fine. And I actually saw somebody fall in, and he was maybe 15 feet in front of me when I was walking back from dinner back to my hotel. And you could see this guy. He had probably been drinking all day, and he was kind of
Yeah.
teetering back and forth, and like there he went right in there. And I don't know how they know there weren't any cops when he went in there, and there were like four on the scene within like 30 seconds. So
Yeah. They got
he was
the
getting
camera.
a fat little ticket there.
Yeah. Nice.
It's very narrow too. It's basically the Riverwalk is a glorified canal, but
Right.
for some
Right.
reason it's still kind of cool.
Yeah, which is what it was to begin with. And if you follow it far enough around town, it kind of gets into the skids, and that was the whole point of just being able to move stuff around town, I guess.
But yeah,
I don't know.
they've got the holiday lights up on the Riverwalk too. It's just a really peaceful place to walk around
Yeah.
at night.
Well, how do you feel now? 12 games down, and we've finished the regular season. What's your overall feeling about this season? Success?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Be determined.
Yeah, and I think there will be just this tiny bit of regret that they weren't ready to go out there in Kansas City. You know, that's maybe the one game we'll kind of look back and go, gosh, so close. They control their own destiny. But yeah, no, like I said earlier, if you told me 9-3 before the season. You're going back to the Alamo Bowl. I'm not even hesitating. That's a season you definitely take.
What's the biggest surprise that you can think of? Just being ambushed with this question. Biggest surprise or biggest positive moment, maybe, from the season?
Well, the Hail Mary, right? I was like ready to turn to go up this hill to go into the post game press conference on that play because you want to get up there as quick as you can. And that there was five more seconds, and I would have been thinking about what questions do you ask after a disappointing tough loss like that. And
I
so
don't.
and just the way that LeJontay Wester played that ball, I love watching that. That is one of the best plays a receiver has made at Colorado in its history.
Let me ask you this, because it occurs to me. I don't know that I have ever seen such a clear turnaround in a season on one play ever. Can you ever remember anything like that? Where one play
Akilla
just
Weatherspoon against Oregon, the
oh, okay,
interception. Yeah,
yeah,
in
good call.
2016. Yeah,
Everything sort of built off that one play.
yeah,
Because you look back and without that play, this whole thing doesn't happen.
yeah. Well, I mean, they still probably have a really successful season, but it would have just been a lot of mid-season gunk that you're going to have to sort through. That,
Yeah,
that was a spectacular moment.
you come off of it, and it just reminds that the old saying, it's a game of inches, and one play can make or break an entire season in this sport, which is really just what's so fun about it. It's like
Yeah,
basketball is different because you got 82 games and blah blah blah, but you got 12 times, man, and magical things can happen in this sport, and I think that's why we love it so much. I mean, um, I guess if I look back, I was just thinking about what would be the biggest surprise to me. I don't know. I don't have anything that's kind of on that big of a scale. I guess Philip Houston at right tackle was a huge
yeah.
positive surprise.
Even Cash Cleveland too, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I expected Zelenskis to go through the season, whatever. So I didn't have a question about center, but I wasn't sure about that right tackle. And I was pretty harsh about Houston and saying I didn't think he could play at this level. Man, he proved me wrong, and God bless him. And so that's one of the bigger surprises to me. I can't really think of anybody else that everybody else kind of lived up to their. I guess there were some guys that didn't live up to their billing, but I
Colton
can't think
Hood
of it.
was I don't know if Colton Hood's a surprise, but that was like wow, they legit have
Yeah,
a really deep cornerbacks room now.
and I think that defense overall is maybe the biggest surprise of the year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Now that I think about it, you mentioned Colton, like that defense, and I guess by extension, Robert Livingston are probably the biggest surprises of the year.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's like we're here. It's sometimes during the season it's a grind, and yet here we are, 12 games under our belts. It's kind of like wah wah wah. We
Well,
don't
it's
get
going
to
to be a
go.
different grind. I mean,
Yeah,
William, we got New York for the Heisman ceremony.
yeah. Well, you and I are going to get together this week and do some recruiting videos,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. Yeah.
still stuff coming. But that's the thing about like you're the season seems to go by so quick when it's over. When you're
Yeah.
in it, it seems like it lasts forever, but then all of a sudden you're done.
I am a little tired of traveling. I am ready to be home a little bit more. I'm
Not
not
looking forward.
complaining. I'm not complaining. I've been aside from the Texas Tech road trip was
I was gonna say
the worst.
driving
I
down.
spent
Yeah,
28 hours and 33 minutes in the car was not my plan. I had two or three flights canceled. So that was the worst part of this season, to be honest with you. Just that Thursday, Friday trying to get down there. But yeah.
well, it's been a fun run. It's been. I think it's lived up to all of our hopes and dreams for the season, and I think I'm even more excited about Coach Prime now. I think he's shut up a lot of the doubters. Well, I don't know if he shut them up or not, but he certainly answered their questions.
Yeah, he has. It's been pretty quiet out there from the haters for sure.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to see what happens next and where we go in this bowl game. I guess we'll be doing some recruiting videos, and we'll do a pre-bowl game edition of this podcast. We'll do a post-bowl game edition of this podcast, and maybe we'll just keep going week to week as long as we can find something to yak about that people listen to.
Well, Coach Prime has set it up. They're going to attack the portal, so we're going to have plenty to talk about all off season. And again, hopefully, it'll be less hit pieces out there, in a lot just more of us talking about football and personnel and guys that are joining the program. William, it's always fun to catch up with you, and I'm looking forward to doing some of that recruiting stuff that we're going to get ready for Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a lot of fun this year.
All right. And I appreciate everybody out there for tuning in.